68 million Egyptians are eligible to vote in presidential polls, which open this Monday. There are two candidates on the ballot boxes: the incumbent general-turned-president Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who's looking for a second term, and a pretty pro-Sisi candidate, Mustafa Musa, who has done little to no campaigning. Opposition leaders are asking voters to stay at home and say the whole thing is a sham. Well, to give us his perspective on it, we're joined live from Cairo by the leader of one of the opposition groups, the Constitution Party of Egypt, Mr. Khaled Dawoud. Thank you for your time. Firstly, can I ask you, is boycotting the vote really the solution? Surely it would be more effective to offer voters an alternative.
Well, indeed, that's what we wanted as opposition groups. There were practically at least 4 candidates who were ready to run against President Sisi. However, unfortunately, we basically saw a very organized attempt to exclude any serious opponent for the president. The former army chief of staff, who announced that he wants to run against Sisi, is now in prison, accused of violating the election law. Another former prime minister, Mr. Ahmed Shafiq, who was also a former presidential candidate, he was forcibly returned from, or deported basically, from the United Arab Emirates to Egypt after he announced he was planning to run, and after being here 24 hours later, he sadly announced he was not running anymore. The serious opposition candidate, human rights lawyer, Mr. Khaled Ali, he also wanted to run, but a case was filed against him, accusing him of also some very fake case, attacks against all opposition candidates in the media, total control of any space that's available for us to express ourselves. Our members are being arrested. So basically, we were not given a chance to even compete, and that's why we decided to face the Egyptian people with the reality. We don't have elections in Egypt. We have what mounts maybe to a referendum over extending the president's terms, but we don't have elections, we don't have competition.
I have read, however, that the opposition is already looking to, in 4 years' time, and forming a more united front, putting forward one candidate that they then think that will be a stronger position. Is there also maybe a lack of preparation for these elections? Could they have been done different for the opposition?
Again, you see, the problem is that over the past 4 years, since President Sisi took over responsibility, there has been intentional effort to basically terminate politics in Egypt. Opposition groups, anyone who holds some independent opinion has been basically excluded or even put in prison for different reasons. I belong to a political party such as Al-Dostour. I mean, not just for trying to organize a peaceful march or something like this, we get arrested, but even some of our members get arrested for posting opinions on Facebook page. I have at least 5 members in prison right now who are basically, all their charge is writing something on Facebook or Twitter which they deem to be against the regime. When we announced that we were boycotting the elections, the prosecutor general referred us to investigation with the charge of attempting to overthrow the regime. Even though at the end of the day, all what we did was basically issuing a statement telling the Egyptian people, this president doesn't want any serious competition, and that's why we call upon you to stay at home. And that's what will happen. I think a lot of Egyptians will stay at home. Yes, millions of Egyptians will go to the ballot box because they support Sisi, but those who do not support them do not find themselves, do not have a candidate who expresses their point of view and who can debate the policies of the president over the past 4 years because of this atmosphere of fear that we've been living through over the past 4 years, very unfortunately.
So you're hoping, Mr. Dawoud, that your call for a boycott will be heard by at least some Egyptians, but Sisi does have strong support in the country. If we look at things in terms of security, the economy there forecast to grow 4.5% over the next year. So he is doing some things right as far as voters are concerned. I'm not debating this. I just admitted a while ago that Mr. Sisi definitely has a base of support. But if that's the case, why fear from having an independent candidate running against you? Why failing to produce to the Egyptian people a detailed political program according to which we can hold the president accountable? As opposition groups, whether we're right or wrong, we have reservations over the priorities of spending by the president. He seems to be very much into spending on mega projects, a new administrative capital, a parallel Suez Canal, which we do not see as a priority. We see the priority improvement of the living conditions of the majority of poor Egyptians. We have 34% of the population live under the poverty level. They need education, they need healthcare. We don't need those kind of construction projects just simply to claim that you are making something that's gonna bear fruit after 20 or 30 years. But unfortunately, even those achievements of the president, are not being allowed to be debated and be discussed. Were they
day, I mean, the first thing that the Egyptian people needed. Unfortunately, this was replaced with placing our members in prison, preventing us from speaking on the national media. The only media means that I can speak to are European and American media means, which is not something that makes me very happy, that I'm being tarnished in my local media, while at the same time I'm only given space on other media means.
And Mr. Dawoud, let's look then, with no opposition, substantial opposition running, everybody's expecting Sisi to get that second term in office. I hope you can still hear me. I can see the image has frozen somewhat. But we are hearing that a second, constitutionally currently in Egypt, a second term would be Sisi's last term in office. However, there's talk that he might try and change the constitution. And I'm wondering just exactly how easy that would be, Mr. Dawoud, if you can still hear me. No, I am being told that sadly we have lost that live connection to Cairo, where we were getting the opinion of Mr. Khaled Dawoud, a leader of the Constitution Party of Egypt, who is clearly not very impressed with the elections that got underway there this Monday.